Today, are you a good friend? What makes a good friend? Or are you a frenemy? To get the answer to those questions, we've invited novelist Megan Crane, author of Frenemies, here. Later in the show, radio talk show host and life coach Mona Miller will join us. First up, Megan Crane. Great to have you here today.
Nice to be here, thanks.
So, frenemy. What is a frenemy?
A frenemy is an enemy who's masquerading as a friend. Or a friend who's masquerading as an enemy. I suppose it could go either way.
So a fake friend.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. So that's why I think the whole concept of frenemies, whether it's the friend is an enemy or an enemy is a friend, you don't know, because you think someone's a really good friend to you, then it turns out they stab you in the back, or you don't like somebody, but then they do something really nice. How do you tell? So, frenemies.
And how common do you think? Well, I sent you an article before the interview that I saw. You know, this has been getting some discussion in the paper. Do you think it's more of a female thing than a guy thing as far as the concept of frenemies? Certainly, friendship, I'd like to believe, applies to everybody. But the notion of frenemies, are women?
Well, I think it is kind of a female thing. But then I started dealing with frenemy issues in like the 7th grade. So for me, it was something I've been dealing with my whole life. I think of it as a woman problem. I don't, the men I know, I don't think they really behave the way that women do.
So how do women behave? What makes them different than guys? Because the guys are just, I don't want to say simpler, more direct. I don't know what. There's not as many games. I don't know. Is that it?
Well, I think that to some extent that's true. I mean, obviously these are huge generalizations, but I think to some extent that is true. I think that I once had a discussion with a bunch of women and also a couple men, and as the women continued to talk about these situations that they'd been in, when women had done these passive-aggressive little games and or sort of snuck around doing these manipulative things, and they all said, well, I don't understand. If that was a guy, just go over and punch him. I mean, it would not, and then you're done. You don't have to.
So women don't just go over and punch. They're a little more
no.
strategic, I guess.
I used to say in high school that, a guy would punch you in the face, but a girl, she'll try to ruin your life. She's not gonna. Why be that direct when you could do it the back way? And I think there's a lot of that in female friendships, which is too bad.
And indeed, you explore that in the book. One of the main issues, I suppose, that's raised is: can you date your friend's boyfriend or girlfriend? Oh,
you mean like they're if they're ex or not ex, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that is very.
Is that a common subject?
Well, it's supposed to be against the girl code. You should never. First of all, you should never steal a friend's boyfriend, and you should certainly, then there's some debate over whether or not you should even get together with someone that like a friend of yours had a crush on or that liked at some point or at a different point. It's hard. These are all girl codes. You're not supposed to ever go against them.
And so that in both characters kind of several characters in the book find themselves in that situation, including the one who, Gus, your main character, finds that a friend of hers is dating her. Well, actually was cheating on her. Was seeing her boyfriend at the same time she was seeing her boyfriend. She just didn't know it until she walked in on them. Right. However, the character also, I guess I shouldn't give away too much, should I? Okay, stop me when I should shut up. But,
no, it's okay.
But she also kind of finds herself in the same position, unwittingly, I suppose, where she's complaining against the other woman who's a friend of me, but finds out she's being a friend of me almost to somebody else, although she wasn't really.
Well, you could argue that she was. I mean, you could definitely argue that she was. I think it was interesting for me writing the book, thinking about all the ways in which I like to think of myself as being a good friend, but at the same time, I think that even if you are a good friend to some people, you can be a really bad friend to other people. And I think everybody has that schism in them.
So what do you think makes a good friend? I hear a lot in LA, people find it hard to make friends, or, in big cities, it's hard, people say, it's a big bad city, it's hard to meet people, all of that kind of thing. What is a good friend?
I think a good friend is somebody who wouldn't betray you, who you can trust, who is there for you in lots of, I don't mean in large heroic ways, but also in really small ways, someone who's going to listen to you. And
I was thinking before the show, and I thought, I know it sounds like a Hallmark card, but it's like a friend is someone who is always there for you. I think that was off the Hallmark card, but I
think that's true. I think a friend is someone who you can reach out to when good times and in bad, and you can expect them to be there. And for all this talk about how women can be horrible friends to each other, they can also be wonderful friends to each other. I have friends who are like family members at this point. I actually don't know who I would be if they weren't in my life, and I think that I tried to explore both of those kinds of women's friendship in this book. It's a group of friends who've been friends forever, and then there's also sort of these evil machinations between other, girls in the group. And I think for me, and for lots of the women I know, it's both of those at the same time, and navigating the difference between the frenemy and the friend can be difficult. But also, the friends who are such good friends, who are family members, mean, you know your sisters or your brothers when you meet them, so there they are. It just sort of becomes like a fact of your existence.
Do you think it's harder to make friends in a big city, in a place like LA, just in general for people?
I think it must be. That's hard for me to answer because one of my best friends in the world lives here, which is why I moved here. So for me, no, that wasn't hard. But I think that it is hard. And I think another reason that it gets hard as you get older is because you have a lot of good friends already, so you have this marker. So when you meet new people, it's very hard, I think, for new people.
Because they go back to your childhood or something.
Right, or your childhood, or wherever it is that I feel like people tend to have different places where they made a lot of friends, whether it's high school or college or childhood or, you know, their first job. People tend to sort of bond with people in different ways. And then later on, when other people come in, I think it can be very difficult because it feels so different.
Sure, and one reason I wanted to do this show today is just that, you know, friendship is such a basic thing in life, and I think it's in a way something, though, that's almost under your nose and people don't necessarily think about it.
Yeah.
You know, kind of step back and take a look at. But I think a lot of people in life sometimes, I see this maybe more with guys, I don't know, but kind of hang around people they're with and aren't maybe even, you know what I mean, like who's around, or, you know, I sometimes even wonder if they really are friends, but like hang out with them because they're there. I mean, do you see that?
Right, I think that you can definitely get in a habit with certain people. Like, for example, I think everyone, when they work in a certain workplace, has work friends who they think, oh, actually, this might be a real friend, but then when they leave that job, realize that they have nothing in common with that person and don't talk to them anymore. So I think in lots of different ways, that sort of like habitual friend can happen. I think it's the ones you take with you as you move along that turn out to be your real friends.
I've read studies, I did, I read the study that said that in general, Americans have, I forget the exact details of the study, but roughly what it said was Americans don't have as many friends these days, or say they don't have as many friends as when the last time they did this study years ago. You know, I don't know if it was 3 friends back then or 5 or 6, and these days people had 1 or something. Do you think that's true, that people
I don't know. That's depressing.
Don't have a lot of friends these days? Is it harder to meet
depressing.
people? You know, and
well, I wonder if it's because we live, particularly in a place like LA, where you spend all your time in your car and then go to the specific places that you're going to. You actually live a very isolated life. You're not in big group public situations where you could maybe meet or interact with more people with similar.
But you have your MySpace friends.
That's true, and your Facebook friends.
So what do you think of that?
Social
what
software.
about the way friendship is changing in a sense that you have these online friends now? Good, bad, otherwise?
Well, I think they're good because they alleviate loneliness, but I think when they take the place of real life friendships, I mean, they're easy relationships because you can show whatever you want to show of yourself. You're
People are showing a lot on MySpace.
Well, yes, but you can control your online persona. Right. I can't control how you sitting here perceive me. I can't control how anyone who walks in a room perceives me, but I can definitely control it online where I can decide what I put out or what I don't put out. I think it's different than real life interactions.
And of course, it may not really even be what the people put out.
Well, exactly. It's all a mystery. You're just assuming that the person who pretends to be the person just like you from wherever is like you, when maybe they're not.
Well, I know you've lived overseas in Europe and studied in England. Is it different over there? This is one thing, I love going to Europe, and I do think there are some pretty basic differences between Europe. So the stereotype is, and I think it's true, that Europe tends to be more focused on social life and that people do have more friends. America's all about work and Europe is more about social life, or a lot of, even South America, I think, are different places where. Is that a fair generalization? Do you think that's true?
I don't know. I think that that's certainly the perception. I think that, I lived in England and went to school there, so I met a lot of people through school and being in the same graduate program, and we all lived in student housing and we knew each other that way. So it was actually a very collegiate experience.
I thought you were going to tell me one of your best friends lived there, and that's why you moved there, like LA. And I thought,
no.
You're blowing the example here everywhere.
You know? Everything, no. But because it was a school scenario, I think that that again was a shortcut to meeting people like any other kind of workplace or school environment, so that everyone was doing the same thing. You know, I haven't had the experience of moving to just a big European city and trying to meet people, but my impression, which maybe is wrong, is that Europe is much more interested in its public space. You know, so people go out, when they come home from whatever job they do, they go out, they walk around the neighborhood, they go to the square, or there seems to be music. I mean, these are just, I remember walking around Paris one evening, it seemed like the entire city was out in the street, not for any reason, not like in New York where they were rushing to do something, but just to be out in the street. Oh
yeah. When I lived in Chicago, one of the big things on a Friday or Saturday night was to go down a stroll downtown, down Michigan Avenue. In LA, we don't go for strolls.
No. Although I live near the Grove, where people stroll around the Grove, I guess.
Well, of course, the beach or Santa Monica, but but in general, it's not like you go to downtown LA and go for a walk on a Friday night or something.
That's true.
So, well, what do you think makes a good friend? How can somebody know if they're being a good friend or not? It's easy. We all want good friends, but how can you be a good friend to somebody else?
Well, I think it was funny, I was talking about this in one of my readings this summer, and someone said, I think that I've been a frenemy with all those people who I actually didn't understand why they wanted to be friends with me. And I was like, why? Get away from me kind of thing. And I think that it might be, sometimes I think it's difficult to recognize that people are reaching out to you. I think when people reach out to you, you should respond if you're trying to be a good friend. And that can be really difficult. And it can be as easy as a phone call or listening. I think listening is a big point. People don't listen so much. They like to talk about their own troubles. I think a good friend is someone who lets you talk about your troubles without interrupting you to tell you about their own.
We'll be right back. We are back today talking about friendship. Joining me now is radio talk show host and life coach Mona Miller from The Mona Miller Show. She's author of Invisible Warfare, and her CD is Mona Miller, Something I've Gotta Trust. Okay, well, we were just talking about frenemies and friends. What do you think about frenemies? Is that a big problem out there?
Oh, yeah, but I love the title. I love it.
I crack up when I hear it.
That's
cool.
Why I
do the
How
show,
cool is
so,
that?
Yeah.
You know, when you mix it like a compound word. It goes with Invisible Warfare, my book.
Oh.
It really goes with it well, because in chapter 2, there's a section in there called the seesaw game. And one of the ways we mess up our friendships is we do seesaw. So let's say I have a radio show, you have a TV show. So my sub-thought back here, I'm jealous that you have TV, but I'm your friend.
Well,
so,
you're here.
Exactly.
We got you.
Right. So I'm going to say a thank you like this. Like I'm going to compliment you like this. I'm going to say, you're my friend, but I'm going to go, oh, that's a really good show you've got.
Or right, so you hear this, see
seesaw.
this more generally. If somebody gets a promotion or something good happens, people are kind of jealous.
We seesaw. So I'm going to put you above me, and I'm going to put me below. It's called the judger. And one of the
also, I've seen cases where I think, sorry to interrupt, but,
That's okay.
but I think even worse in a way, I've seen where people are happy when something bad happens to the other person secretly, like their friend's fired or something. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
that's seesaw too.
Or you know what I mean?
Because then I go up and you go down.
But isn't that's kind of twisted?
Yeah, it's judger. You know, in any base religion or spiritual thought, it says, do not judge lest you be judged. Well, it's not, I call the judger the piranha. I do like a little hand puppet that goes, go on, admit where you're not okay. That's right, you're a jerk. So we do that in our head.
My theory is we should all rise together, you know?
Exactly.
I want good things for you, good things for me. Well,
it's called understanding.
Yeah.
If I understand me, self-love is extremely important in a friendship. Because if I don't love me, and that means good, bad, and ugly. I have to love me for where I'm weak. I have to love me for where I'm strong and not compare myself to you.
Right, and I think that's where it comes from. It is kind of a weakness.
Yes.
You're not secure in yourself if
right.
you feel bad. You know, and first of all, by the way, on the show, I mean, I would say, you know, I want the winners on the show, not the losers, no offense. But I mean, you know, we want people who do good things. So you know, hell, and you're excited when you get them, you know what I mean? So I don't understand that mentality because, but there are people who are happy to see other people fail, which I don't understand.
And that's just lack of self-love. And there's like the seesaw game. If I put you or me, I can also be a jerk the other way if I put me above you. Of, oh, well, you're just doing this. And I don't have to say it. If we could be aware in our friends that we have sub-thoughts. And sub-thoughts has a thing called a vibe. And the thing that causes enemy is they're picking up vibes. So if I have a vibe coming from a sub-thought, which is why you want to be able to process yourself. I have a rinse section in there that makes you rinse, I'm angry because, I'm scared because, I feel bad because, I hate you because, you ruined my life because, and then I change it to I ruined my life. All I'm doing is pulling up my poison, kind of like toxins, going to the bathroom energetically, mentally, and emotionally. And if I stay on top of that with me, I'm not gonna have a problem with you. It's when you trigger me on something to where you brought up a subject that hurts me, and I'm not, and also the secrets. There's a thing called secret versus privacy. So privacy is I'm okay about my good, bad, and ugly, but I just choose not to talk about it. And then there's the secret where I'm not okay about my good, bad, and ugly, and I'm vibing you. And vibing affects friends. So if I'm looking at you and not feeling good, I'm going to compliment you with all kinds of vibe in it. And you're going to feel uncomfortable and not know why. Then maybe ask me, what's wrong with you, Mona? And I'm going to say, nothing. You know?
Do you believe what Megan said earlier, that women handle friendship and frenemies different than guys? That there are more, I don't know if people say mind games or whatever, games in general, I don't know. You know, guys are just, guys will punch you in the face or something or be more direct and say F you, but they're not going to play games as much.
I find that to be about a brain dominance. I do find it more common with women, but a right brain dominant person, which isn't a creative, emotional person, those are the manipulative minds if they're not really good with truth. If you love truth above feelings, I can be clean with you. Whereas the male, and especially in our particular culture, like our educational and judicial and religious systems are set up through the left brain, which is your logical mind. So logic just says, this makes sense, this doesn't. The emotional mind says, I don't care what the truth is, I have a big feeling and now I'm going to act on it. So feeling can bypass logic.
So is that, so women are more emotional? I mean, is that?
In general stereotype, no, because if you look in the entertainment field, how many of those males are right brain dominant? You know,
so you're not really looking at it from a gender point of view, it is just
I'm looking at it from a brain point of view because I just know too many men that are creative emotional, but I find the logical male and the logical female, the lawyer, the stereotype, I'm using stereotypes right now, like the lawyer or the accountant, I mean, you want to feel some strong logical vibe, and the logical mind has a tendency of going to the judgmental mind, which is an opinion of good, bad, right, wrong, stupid, smart. And the creative mind and emotional mind, if you don't take care of it, goes to crazy, which is act out. So I can easily become, in my feelings, a cat, which is what she was talking about. So I can go, oh yeah, and I will mess you up. You know, I'll look in your eyes and go,
I'm starting to get worried here.
And that's right.
So how do you help the cat? What do you do for the cat? How do they get over there?
First of all,
Bring out the dog.
Yeah, bark. No, I make them go through their feelings, first of all, and become friends with their, what I call crazy voices. In the book, it's called a crazy voice, which means a whole bunch of feelings or psychic energy that I picked up from TV. I can pick it up from a TV, a movie, or anything, and I put it inside of me, and I react off of it. Because you know how some people are more reactive to movies than others?
Sure.
Okay, they're probably right brain dominant, so their visual mind and their feeling mind is very strong, and logic has a hard time coming in there saying these are effects. This is not real. So I help feeling people not feel shame and guilt about having illogical feelings. And if they can say, hi, I have a crazy voice about you, I really don't mean it, or I can even deal with it myself that says, I want to kill you, I just want to rip you to shreds, but I love you, I really, I'm just self-beating, which is the piranha coming at me, I'm just, and then when I feel my jealousy with you, what I can do is actually say what I like about you and integrate that in my life. So actually your positive that I'm self-beating about becomes a picture for me so I can become better with myself. But it's nice that I can do that without feeling guilty. The shame's going to come if I feel bad because I love you and I'm having a problem with you. And I can't get it out without more guilt on top. So I spin in it. So I try to help the feeling people, the over-feeling people, feel comfortable with crazy voices and get it out. There's called a letter of absurdity. There's lots of tricks in this book. The letter of absurdity, which is I'll paint it really, really big and ridiculous. And then I see what the real issue is. And then when I see the absurdity, I can see what I'm really doing and I don't feel bad. And then I can clean it and I won't have the issue with you. There's actual techniques in there to help you clean that so the frenemy doesn't have to be a frenemy anymore because there's no shame in feeling the illogical feelings. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and do you think that we have a kind of a friendship crisis in America or maybe in the world these days? Do people have less friends? Like I say, I've seen these studies, you know, say that people don't have as friends. Do you think in general is that true? Are people, I don't know, lonelier or less connected with other people? Or?
No, I think we're evolving and we don't know how to do it. I think we've changed. We're coming out of, the United States, we're coming out of a master-slave mentality. I mean, in the world, we've been a master-slave mentality, and most people have been playing roles. Now we're trying to get real with no skill. We don't know how to, there's no processing for the right brain out there, hardly at all, unless you go to the performing arts school. So we don't have enough understanding of the right brain and our empathy, which is this prefrontal cortex here, this empathy. So we know how to do sympathy, but empathy requires a lot of self-love and the other person to have a lot of self-responsibility. We're just new at that. So self-responsibility is getting higher, and intimacy means into me I see. So I think the more we learn how to own ourselves, good, bad, and ugly, the more you can tell me your illogical thoughts and feelings without me personalizing, I think we're about to become truer friends than we've ever been. But we just don't have the skill yet, which is why I wrote the book, The Invisible Warfare, the fight within ourselves and each other that we can't see.
What do you think about online friends, your MySpace friends? Are those your real friends?
They can be, depending, once again, on the level of truth and owning. Friendships is about truth. It's about owning, and it's about being able to intuition, use your intuition with each other, sense each other, and then share that without anger, fear, guilt, and shame.
We will be right back with Mona Miller, author of Invisible Warfare. And we are back with Megan Crane, author of Frenemies, and also with Mona Miller, author of Invisible Warfare. Well, I'm going to quote or paraphrase something from the great Roman writer Cicero, which I think mentioned to you on the phone. A favorite quote of mine is, roughly speaking, everybody wants to have the kind of friend that nobody wants to be. And do you think that's true in some ways in this world, that, you know, I want you to be my best friend and be there and do everything for me, but I don't necessarily want to put a lot of time and effort into doing stuff for you because that takes effort?
Absolutely. I think that goes with, I don't know about you, but codependency. You know, like I'll play the selfish, you play the selfless, and we practice the selfless, selfish. You know, and that goes together. Self-love attracts self-love. Selfish attracts selfless. So my role is to say yes to you all the time. So we match, because you're all about you and I'm all about you. You see, so I think in that sometimes there's a codependency. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think it can also be perception. You know, if you perceive that you're very giving and you do all these different things and that's your perception of yourself, but actually you're not doing those things.
Your friends wouldn't say the same
right,
thing.
Your friends like, actually, no, you're a complete narcissist, and that would be an imbalance.
Right,
at the very
exactly.
least.
Yeah, and that's one reason, again, that I wanted to do this show today, because, again, you know, we all have friends and want friends and value friends, but I don't think a lot of people put a lot of time into their friendships. And
Or do they know how?
Well, yeah, and I think that people,
Right.
you were saying earlier that we don't talk about friendship as this basic human need. We don't discuss it. We talk about everyone needs to find love, and we all are all about finding love, but why aren't we taught how to be good friends? Why aren't we taught that friendship is one of the cornerstones of, I would say, an adult existence?
Exactly. I mean, you know, and going back to Cicero, I reread his essay last night before the show, and you know, it sounds obvious, but it's just so true that, because, you know, in ancient times they had a discussion about whether or not it was weakness if you needed friends. Could you be a, you know, independent person who didn't need anybody? And, you know, that's the way they thought back then. But, you know, but as I said, you know, if you could just be dropped off on a planet somewhere out in the middle of nowhere and not have friends, I mean, who would want to live a life without, you know, if you were the only person on the planet? I mean,
That's
we all
your
want
key.
friends.
You just said the key, want. And sometimes we're coming from need. And I think sometimes, yes, there are times to need a friend, but I think the first desire is, do you want a friend? And why do you want a friend? And what kind of friend do you want to be? Because you'll attract what you are. So a lot of times when people say, my friends are this, this, and this, I have them do a writing exercise. Okay, so I go like this. Dear Joe, when I look at you, I see. When I look at you, I feel. And then I say, okay, now turn it. When I look, take out Joe's name and put yours in there and find out, the stories may not match, but find out, I promise you, you're in there. And then change yourself, and it changes the dynamic of the friendship. What do you think?
That's really interesting. No, I think it's true. I think one of the key moments in my book is when the two people who are frenemies face each other down and realize that they're both a bad friend to the other.
And they could be honest and heal.
Right.
They could actually fix that. That friendship's not over because it just got truth, right? Well, if they could accept the truth.
No, but I think it's true.
Right?
I mean, I think that is, without using, actually, your book really, I think, is the sort of thing I was trying to talk about without using a formula in the book, which is that you don't always know that you're a bad friend to someone else.
You can't see yourself. You're not walking around with a mirror.
Right, and
I'm just looking at you.
You have to change your own dynamic. You can't wait for someone else to do it. If you feel that your friendship is bad, or that terrible things are happening, or that you're being undermined, as you were saying earlier, all those different things, then you can help change the dynamic.
But I think I read in your article that you sent to me with the CNN, where you were talking about when somebody cheated on the other person, but the girls still remained friends. For a while there. I forget which story that was, but I was looking at it. If they say you can talk truth and get to the feelings and work it through, sometimes those friendships can be saved because of the truth.
That was an article from CNN that I saw that she actually didn't write, but it was from CNN, that was talking about some of the celebrity cases of
okay, that's where I
lately,
saw it, because they can heal. You can heal with truth even if it was creepy friendship.
Well, right. Well, in my book, the main character is more angry at the friend who cheated. I guess she wasn't cheating, but who was with her boyfriend than she is at the boyfriend. She wants to get back together with the boyfriend, but she's furious with her friend.
But the expectation of a girl is different than the expectation of a boy.
Aha, there we go again.
You see? Isn't it true?
But I think it's the difference between a friendship and a romantic relationship. I think you expect on some level that a romantic relationship can go awry, that you could be cheated on or betrayed, but you expect a friend to constantly have your back.
But isn't that weird that we want the higher expectation on the friend, yet the lover gets by with that?
That's true. It's interesting.
That's because the big feelings around the lover. I'll forgive him because I'm too attached. Right?
Oh, people put up a lot of...
Yes, don't they? Don't they? I'm like, what are we doing?
Well, thank you both very much for being here
Thank
today.
you
Mona
so
Miller,
much.
Megan,
Thank you.
Craig.
Thank you.
Megan's book is Frenemies. Mona's is Invisible Warfare. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.